April 11, 2024 at 6:31. Roll call, please.
Craig Palmer,
Here.
Tom Murphy, Ned Dalton here, Joe Paletta,
Here.
Luigi Cavallo,
Here.
Ed Norton. Here. Mike Jett.
Here.
Charles Bellevaux. Two vacancies.
Thank you. 3, public hearing. Ned, could you read the ground rules for the,
Ground rules for Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency. Number 1, the applicant and his or her representative will make his or her formal presentation to the commission stating the proposed regulated activities, wetland impacts, and the alternatives which were considered by the applicant. 2, all comments, discussion, and observations shall be made through the chairperson after proper recognition by the chairperson. This is necessary to ensure that only one person at a time speaks on any issue, thus making it easier for everyone to understand and for clearer legal transcription. 3, all persons addressing the commission shall begin by first clearly stating their name and address for the record. If necessary, the person may be asked to spell his or her name for the record. 4, following the presentation of the application, the Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency will ask specific questions of the applicant. 5, after the commission has asked its questions of the applicant, the chairman shall then allow any members of the public who wish to speak either in favor of this application or against it to address the commission. 6, the chairman shall then allow the applicant to respond to the comments of the members of the general public. 7, the chairman shall then allow any members of the general public who wish to present any additional information or clarifying discussion to do so. 8, the chairman shall then provide an opportunity for the applicant to respond to these additional remarks if he or she or his or her representative so wish. 9, the Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency has 35 days from the date the public hearing commences to complete the public hearing. The commission may ask the applicant for a 35-day extension of the public hearing period if this commission requires any additional information or wishes to schedule a site walk to observe the situation for themselves. 10, the Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency has 35 days from the date when the public hearing is closed to render its decision.
thank you. A, continuation of the public hearing from March 14, 2024, application 2024-1 of Carrier Construction Incorporated for a 6-lot residential subdivision, construction of associated roadways, and construction of 6 new homes on Munson Road, Watertown. Ned, could you read, there's a letter written by a person on Plunges Road, I think. Should be in your packet.
Mr. Chairman, we want to wait until they do
Okay.
their presentation and
All right.
at the end we do that.
Okay.
Good evening, Ron Walsh, professional engineer representing the applicant and owner, Carrier Construction.
Ron, I'm sorry, can you turn on
Hey,
your
Mike.
microphone?
It's got to be red. Next, there you go.
Okay, got it. Good evening, Ron Wolf, professional engineer representing the owner and applicants, Carrier Construction. And with me this evening is Eric Carrier with Carrier Construction. Eric Davison, he's our professional soil scientist, and Franklin Pilosi, attorney. And what I'd like to do is just go through the revisions that we've made to the plan since the previous hearing in February, primarily being the addition of a stone wall along the conservation easement boundary on both the east side and the west side of the proposed houses. So you could see on the east side of the development, we have, let's see, a total of 322 linear feet, which is behind lots 1 and 2 of stone wall, beginning just north of the detention basin and extending to the limit of the house on lot 2. And on the west side, we have another 565 linear feet that will be constructed behind lots 5 and 6, for a total of almost 890 linear feet of stone wall. We provided the detail on the plans, which is in the upper right-hand corner of the plan sheet there. It's called a commonly constructed wall in Connecticut near agricultural areas. It's known as a single wall, also known as a pasture wall or a farmer's wall. It's 24 to 30 inches wide at the base, 12 to 18 inches wide at the top, and it has a proposed height of about 2 feet, 24 inches. We selected this wall because it was common to Connecticut and commonly found along pastures and the edges of fields, and it'll match similar to the existing wall that remains between the field and the wooded area. For the areas north of the stone wall, where the stone wall ends, north of the proposed houses, we're proposing the conservation easement placards at a 25-foot spacing along the north on both the east and west sides. And then there's a small section of conservation easement on the east side of the detention basin also, where we don't have a stone wall because that will be owned by the town, but we're proposing placards there also at 25-foot spacing. And all these were shown on the updated site plan. We also received correspondence from the town engineer dated April 5th indicating that all his comments in previous review letters were satisfied. We sent plans to the Waterbury Bureau of Water on March 22nd when we have not received comments from them yet. With the conservation easement on both the east and west side, we're providing a total of 7.9 acres now, with the protected land being 52.2% of the land being subdivided. And as I previously mentioned, we addressed all the town engineer's review comments, and with that, I can answer any questions you may have. Oh, actually, for that, I'm going to have Eric Davison give a little summary since he wasn't here at the previous hearing. He delineated the wetlands, and he's our professional soil scientist.
There you go.
Good evening, Eric Davison. I'm a wetland and soil scientist. I'm practicing in Connecticut for about 24 years. I also sit on my wetland commission in Chester, so I know what it's like to want to go home and eat dinner, so I'll try to be brief. Just to summarize what I've done on the property since Ron asked me to get involved, obviously delineate the wetland boundaries, and then the second, and I produced a wetland delineation report, which you, I'm sure, have in the file. The second document I produced was back in February. That's the Wetland Functions and Values Assessment Report. That goes through and classifies, per your regulations, the characteristics of the wetlands, hydrology, vegetation, soils, and what their principal functions and values are. There's Wetland 1 on the west side of the development, Wetland 2 on the east side of the development, both very similar wetlands in characteristic, in their soil characteristics, their hydrology, their vegetation, and their function. They're both what we classify as hillside groundwater slope wetlands, which are wetlands that are on glacial till slopes. They don't have much standing water due to the gradual slope throughout the wetland. They tend to have embedded intermittent water courses, which both of these wetlands do. So they're fed by surface water from the upslope drainage, and they're both forested. But another big contributing factor to the wetlands is groundwater discharge. But these are pretty typical wetlands. The most common wetland type in Connecticut, basically, it's what a layperson would call red maple swamp. Again, both of them do have embedded streams. In this case, the embedded streams are fed by culvert outlets on Munson Road, which carry flow from the south side of the road, which I discuss in my report. So you do have that concentrated flow that's fed from the south side of Munson Road and is also fed to some degree by the road runoff that does run down the road and reach those culvert outlets. With respect to the development area, again, that's a compact glacial till field. So you do get some infiltration and horizontal flow of the water that reaches that field and does discharge into the wetlands. That same function will continue. You'll have the additional discharge that will come from the stormwater basin. But for the most part, especially on the north and west side, the water's going to hit the ground, infiltrate down to that till layer. That most tills have a layer of soil down in the BC horizon where the water hits that, and that tends to flow horizontal towards the wetlands, and that function will still continue. Ron also asked me to review the plans and just ensure, and then of course come here and make a statement that they do not have any adverse impact, that the project doesn't have an adverse impact on the wetlands per your regulations, and it does not. The primary reason for that is, first and foremost, there's no direct wetland impacts. The most common way that wetlands adversely impacted is direct impact. So that's a fill, either filling for development or a crossing or something that really alters the hydrology and reduces the overall wetland square footage. In this case, you have no direct impact. So when you're talking about secondary impacts is what we would look at here, because there's no direct impact. We focus on stormwater primarily, and then secondarily, we would look at, what type of buffer distance are you providing that would maintain some of the functions that we identified, and buffer distance is primarily supportive of wildlife habitat. But to the stormwater function, that's the most critical secondary impact that we look at. If you have a development near wetland, even if you're 30, 40, 50 feet away and no direct impact, if you're not treating the stormwater, that can have an adverse impact. In this case, as Ron always does in the developments I work with him on, he's designed a primary treatment system in compliance with the state recommendations in the stormwater quality manual that will treat the pollutants that are generated from the development. In this case, the primary concern is what comes off the roads. We are concerned with lawn impacts to wetland water quality that can be either nutrients or the things that people put on their lawn, like fertilizers and pesticides. In this case, there's a significant buffer distance between the edge of the lawns and the wetlands, but so that's less of an issue. But again, the stormwater basin in the design and configuration that it has is going to be a primary treatment practice, which takes out nutrients, pollutants, sediments, intoxicants to a level that again meets the state standards, in a way that we can say there is no likelihood of adverse impact. And just back to sum up on the buffer issue, even if you treat stormwater, but you have a development that, say, is 10, 20 feet from the wetlands, you can still be protective of water quality, but you tend to impact other aspects of the wetland function. You increase the sunlight that reaches the wetland, you can have invasive species outbreaks that result from development close to wetlands, and you can reduce the wildlife value because you limit the ability for wildlife to move in and out of the wetland along the buffer like most species like to do. In this case, you've got sizable setbacks around all of the lots that would allow for some migratory function and just general wildlife use of the wetland upland perimeter, which many species don't specifically use the wetland or specifically use the upland, but they use the edge habitat between the two. So again, you've got a good buffer distance between the developed edge and the wetland. That's I think a pretty good summary. Certainly can answer questions if you have any.
I know Ron had mentioned that you talked to Waterbury Water Reservoir. What was the reaction, or what did they want?
They just asked us to email them the plans. They received them, they emailed us back, and we haven't received any further correspondence from them.
So we're supposed to assume they're going to send you some,
They said that if they
To sign
had
off.
comments, they would get them to us, and we have not received them yet. So, and that was back in March, March 22nd. So. We did go over the project, you know, I
Right.
just explained to him that it was
Yeah.
residential, no commercial or industrial activities, and so,
and like you said, all the stormwater from Munson Road and Kobe Lane's going into that,
correct.
basically.
From the part that's being developed of Munson Road, correct?
And the gutters and everything are in infiltrators.
Correct.
Any other questions from the commission? Yes, sir.
I have a question about the soil scientist. Sorry. You said that there is hard pan there?
It wouldn't technically be called a hard pan in this soil type, but as you get to that transition between the B and C, you do get to a layer that the infiltration rate slows and you're going to get more horizontal flow, and that's where you get that discharge zone. If you walk into the wetland, and I think I have a photo or two in my report, you walk into the wetland and look at that interface, you can see the water perking out of the ground, you know, about 2 feet down the slope as you get into the wetland, and that's basically where that water is coming down, hitting that rockier till layer that's heavier in stone and a little denser, and it starts to flow. A hard pan is a little different. A hard pan is like a really restrictive layer, so it's not a hard pan.
Okay. Ron proposed that these underground infiltrator systems for each lot. Do you think that the soil is good enough for those systems to be
Yes.
underground?
Yes, for infiltrators for a house, yes, because it's a small amount of water, and also what happens was when they install those, you know, they dig an oversized hole, they put material back and they put stone around it, so once you fracture that natural layer, the infiltration rate actually increases, so once they dig that hole, it makes it more suitable to discharge the water. But the way they install those, and again, assuming they have a stone, a gravel surround, and they're sized specifically for the volume of water that the house generates, so.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just for the record, the Torrington Area Health District approved the location of the septic system
There was
for
a letter,
each
yeah.
lot. Yeah,
Right.
just for the record.
I asked last month, like alternatives that you, I asked last month for the alternatives that you looked at before coming to the conclusion that this is the best alternative or use of this property. Do you have that answer?
Maybe I can answer that. The first part of the answer is that this plan that you have now has changed a couple of times since it was first filed. Firstly, the detention was all changed to take everything, especially from Munson Road, where that was not the case in the beginning. And secondly, they substantially beefed up the conservation restriction area. It's now up to 52%. And I think I mentioned the last time that under Connecticut law, if you have a situation where there are no adverse impacts on wetlands, there's no need for any further feasible or prudent alternatives, because, and the theory is that you already are at zero, and how can you get better than zero? And I have a legal opinion on that I can submit if anybody wants that, but it cites a pertinent Connecticut court case that speaks exactly to that issue. If you have no impacts, then there's no obligation on the property owner to provide any additional feasible and prudent alternatives. Again, if you're at zero, there's no need to try to get better than zero.
Well, it's totally opposite of a class that we took from someone that said that, so.
Don't
And it's
know
in,
about
there's
your
case
class.
law, recent case law that says different.
Okay, I'm not aware of any.
So that's just the
but
question.
I'm going to submit this.
That's your
And
answer.
I can give everybody a copy.
It's the class that we were asked to take by the town.
I should have been a teacher.
You would have been retired by now. Teacher.
Well, that's another story.
All right.
Or should be.
Paul, do you have any questions or comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, as I wrote comply with all my requests, and they've improved the Munson Road drainage vastly by directing everything to the pond instead of, the existing roadway as
Right.
it is now, just sheeting off the millings, so, I'm happy with it.
Any other questions? Ron, we are the Conservation Commission too, part of it, so if there's any further thought about that other lot, there's always, we do have a land trust in town that, or the town purchases open space, so just maybe make a note of that. Musa, we don't have to wait for the answer from Waterbury to close the public hearing.
No, Mr. Chairman, actually, open the
Right.
public hearing to the
Well,
public.
I'm gonna have,
Yes,
I'm gonna have Ned read that letter, or no?
yes.
Yeah.
We received a letter from one of the
Somebody.
neighbors. It was for the last month, but we forgot to put it in the packet last month. We have it tonight. Mr. Secretary is reading into the record.
It's from Teresa LaBelle, who is of 52 Plungish Road, Watertown, Connecticut, to the zoning office. I am submitting this letter, excuse me, I'm submitting this letter for the Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency regular meeting on March 14th, 2024, since I can't attend in person. I am writing in opposition of application 2024-1 of Carrier Construction Incorporated for a 6-lot residential subdivision on Munson Road. Watertown has been losing its rural areas for years, and now another rural area with wetlands is in danger of being destroyed for unnecessary houses. Wetlands provide important ecological benefits, including erosion control and water quality improvements, along with being a critical habitat for plants and animals. My husband and I choose to live on Plungish Road because we enjoy the ruralness and beauty of the area. The land and trees are beautiful and are home to various wildlife. I love seeing red-tailed hawks and other birds on the trees, as well as deer and foxes, among other animals on the open land. We are also lucky enough to see bald eagles and heron in the area. These animals and birds will be losing their homes if the trees are destroyed and wetlands disturbed. And we will also be losing the natural beauty of the area. Is it worth destroying their habitat for a few houses? Munson Road is also already a very busy cut-through road that is used all hours of the day and night. Even in its current condition, cars, trucks, and delivery vehicles speed up and down the road. The master bedroom in our home is right next to Munson Road, and there are times in the middle of the night where we are woken up by cars going up and down the road. This will only get worse if houses are built in the area and will mean more traffic for an already busy and deteriorating Plungish Road. Plungish Road is narrow and in need of repair, something I don't believe the town has the funds to improve. If Watertown can't even afford to repair existing roads, can it really afford to put money into this project for 6 houses? It's very concerning to me that the town of Watertown is even considering the destruction of this important ecological area, along with spending money the town doesn't have. Can we please preserve what little beautiful rural and land Watertown does still have and deny this application? Thank you, Teresa LaBelle, 52 Plungish Road, Watertown, Connecticut.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application? Yes, sir. Can you come up to the microphone, Tommy?
First of all, I'm against taxpayers' money being spent to rebuild Munson Road for this project. And then I would like to see the city of Waterbury do on-site observance of this project, because the water ends up in the Waterbury reservoirs. And before you pass it, you get the okay from the city of Waterbury, because somebody might be left holding a bag if there's trouble. if Waterbury says okay, on an on-site observation instead of at their desk, then you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a comment. Waterbury had the opportunity to respond to their
Right.
request, and they said that if we have any comments, we will let you know. If they didn't make any comments, that means that they don't have any objection. I interpret that way.
Right. Anybody else from the public on this application? Yes, sir.
I have to identify myself and everything, right? The same
Yes.
procedure? Okay.
Yes, sir.
My name's Mel Zupstanovich. I live on 610 Litchfield Road, and I'm here to talk about the changes that are being proposed on Munson Road. I'd like to quote some history first. Once upon a time, your board was led by a lady named Judy Wick. And even though you may or may not have agreed with her, she always had the best.
Sorry, it
interest.
wasn't this board, it was the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay,
I
well-
just want you to know.
Yeah, okay. So she always had the best interests of the town in her decision-making. And I guess what I'm really asking is that you also consider the town when you make these decisions. I'm not questioning these people. I wish them all the luck in the world with the building and everything. But at the last meeting, I brought up the same issue that was just mentioned, and that was that the water coming off that hill and flowing through Munson Road feeds the watershed, feeds the water that goes eventually to Waterbury. We already have issues with that water department. And once again, what my colleague mentioned of calling the Waterbury Department and having them do an on-site inspection, I think would behoove you, because you really don't want to end up with a lawsuit by after-the-fact building. Now, the second thing is I would call into question on who is handling the paperwork or the communication in Waterbury. Because as of Tuesday, when I spoke to the superintendent of the water department in Waterbury, I was told that the normal procedure was that they would get notified by the town of Watertown. And my question was point blank to him: have you had any notification of what's going on Munson Road? And the response was no. So somewhere along the line, there's no communication. And I would strongly, strongly urge this committee to find out from Waterbury what their feeling is on this before we end up in the courts. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have to clear something. When the property is within 500 feet of another municipality, we have to notify them. But this property is not. That is why we didn't send anything. It is the responsibility of the applicant if they want to contact them. But we do, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, they notified, but the town, we don't do it. If the property was within 500 feet, then we have to do that, yes.
I don't think at this stage it would be an issue to have the engineering department reach out to them. If there's a concern here, I don't know why that Paul couldn't reach out to them. So there's some correspondent in writing from
Right, we need
the town of
written
Watertown to them.
correspondence.
Right. You agree, Paul?
Apparently the applicant, I know, you have a copy of the letter that you sent?
I have a confirmation from the person I sent it to. His name is Christopher Savage. He's a manager, Bureau of Water, City of Waterbury. It's dated March 22nd, 2024. Ron, I have received two of the 6-lot residential subdivision plans for our review. Thank you, Chris. And 2 other people were copied on that correspondence. Robert Langenow, I think he's the superintendent.
He is.
So he was definitely received it, and another fella, Terry Latifi. So they were both received by the City of Waterbury and the superintendent. So we can confirm that. And we have not received any comments back.
It doesn't mean they're not going to give comments. Did
Right.
they know, or did you notify them that you needed the comments by tonight?
I did, and I also
We
told
don't have any
them,
proof of that, so, I mean, we should do things in writing.
right, but
And it's kind of-
it's my understanding that this would also be reviewed by planning and zoning to make sure that, we also have to go in front of planning and zoning for a subdivision application, and I believe this would be under their jurisdiction. Similar, it's not an aquifer protection area, it's a watershed for public water, so it's not a wetland jurisdictional thing, but planning and zoning would certainly have an overview of that.
It's kind of new to everybody.
Right, we'll make sure that somewhere it's followed
Yeah.
up by,
What was the date that you sent those letters out?
March 22nd, and then I received correspondence back from them also that they received
Correct.
them, both emails. So.
any other questions?
They received.
Anybody else in the public?
Ron, I just have a question. You mentioned the wetlands or the conservation markers in the northwest corner of the lot there. Would those be placed in line with the stone wall running north to south?
Yes.
Heading almost on that the buffer line?
Yeah, so where the stone wall is, we'll have the placards every 50 feet. Where the stone wall ends, those placards will be at every 25 feet.
Okay.
And that's on the east and west sides, on the north end, where the stone wall ends, and then there's a small piece just on the side of on the east side of the detention basin where there's no stone wall.
All right.
Those would be at 25 feet spacing.
Okay. The description of the stone wall looks good to me. I thank you for adding that. It's something that's recommended and we're trying to push for. Thanks for putting that in there. And it looks like it's in a good spot.
Thank you.
No other questions? Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that, close
Just, I want to mention one other thing, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
regarding Waterbury.
Yes,
I mean, they have the right to protect their, whatever,
Right.
the watershed, whatever. In case if this commission make any decision on it, that is between the property owner and Waterbury. It has nothing to do with us.
Right, but we're
Because
only-
it is not under our jurisdiction,
Right.
yes.
But
But
tonight
that
we're
was a
only-
good concern that you had.
right.
I mean, suppose City of Waterbury sends
Yeah.
something later and say that, oh, we
No,
have this
no.
problem, they have to deal
Right.
with them.
But I
Yes.
mean, tonight, we're only
Right, that's a
closing the
concern.
public hearing, we're not approving it anyway. So
Okay.
there is time left there.
Right.
Yes.
Correct. Anybody else in the public? No, I don't think so. Want to make a motion?
yeah, okay. I move to close the public hearing for application 2024-1 of Carrier Construction Incorporated for a 6-lot re-subdivision, construction, associated roadway, and construction of 6 New Home on Munson Road, Watertown, Connecticut.
Second. Motion made in second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, any abstention? Motion carries. Like to thank for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Just going through everything, thank you.
Is it correct you're not going to vote tonight?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. B, this is a new public hearing that's going to, for application 2024-7 of Newport Realty Group LLC for the construction of Turnberry Estates, a 34 active unit adult community on 24.6 acres parcel to be located off Pondview Drive, Watertown. Can you just read the legal notice, please?
Town of Watertown Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands Agency legal notice. Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands Agency of the Town of Watertown will hold a public hearing at 6:30 PM on Thursday, April 11th, 2024, at Watertown Town Hall, Council Chambers, 61 Echo Lake Road, Watertown, Connecticut, to hear and act upon the following applications. application 2024-7 of Newport Realty Group LLC for construction of Turnberry Estates, a 34-unit active adult community, associated new roadways, and on-site drainage systems on a 24.6-acre parcel to be located off Pondview Drive, Watertown, Connecticut. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard and written communications received. A copy of the application is on file at the Land Use Office at Watertown Town Hall, 61 Echo Lake Road, Watertown, Connecticut, dated at Watertown, Connecticut, this 28th day of March 2024, dated at Watertown, Connecticut, this 4th day of April 2024. Adult Secretary, Conservation Commission and the Wetland Agency.
Good evening, Chair, Commission members. My name is Andrew Quirk, professional engineer and principal with Kratzer Jones and Associates, and I'm here this evening with the applicants, Newport Realty, with Mark Lovely and Tony Valenti, and Matt Sanford, the soil scientist from SLR, and the counsel for this project, Franklin Pillacy. We have quite a long presentation to go through. I'm going to try to cover as much as I can from the information that was there and then address any comments. I guess the first order of business is that with the public hearing, we did do the mailings and have the certified mailing returns, which Mark Lovely's dropping off. Also, let's make you get up again, but I do have, we did discuss some revisions at the site walk, and we've begun those, which are part of the presentation. But I also provided copies of the revisions to the plans, the overall site layout sheet for that. The overall outline of the presentation is I'd like to take some time to go through where the property is located and the identifying portions of the property, the development, because it's a different development style, going into a little bit that style. Then we'll go into the impacts and the comparison as an alternative to the previously approved subdivision and those comparisons. I also have information on the stormwater management and then details of from the soil scientists on the delineation and functions and values of the wetlands. So to begin, I prepared first an overall map, which is the second sheet in the presentation. I know there were a lot of questions about the location and impact in the area. So this is just a screenshot from Google showing in red the outline of the property. This is phase 3 of Highview Estates that was never built. This is that section of that subdivision that was never constructed. Starting here on the right is Pondview, and they did leave a stub for access to the site that we walked up to on the site walk. This is Pondview Drive and the residences along Pondview Drive. All along to the south, to the west, there's a strip here, a 50-foot strip on the west. All on the north up to here on the east is property that's owned by the town of Watertown as deeded open space that was part of Highview Estates. So that is, on those 3 sides, all town-owned open space. For reference, this is Highgate Apartments in the lawn area at the top of the hill. This is basically the crest of the hill here. And then down on Route 63 is Burger King, and then just, it got clipped off to the north there is Shaker Chrysler. And then the entrance, of course, to the subdivision is here, Pondview Drive, with the detention basin in this location here. On the next sheet shows that same area, but with the contours. So it's a little bit easier to see the different wetland areas. I'll go through the sub-watersheds, but essentially there's the wetland boundary to the south and west that has an intermittent water course. It's just that area where there's some water that flows out of the wetland system and meets the criteria as an intermittent water course before it's absorbed in the soil before connecting back. There's a central wetland system with the intermittent water course where there would be the proposed roadway crossing through the center of the project. And then on the north end, there's another intermittent water course. So basically 3 general areas that we'll go through in more detail. This is the sheet that was used for the site walk. So just for orientation, on the site walk, we started here at Pondview. We came up along the yellow flagging of the center line to the first detention basin in this area here. And then we came up to some of these units in their proximity to the clearing. And then we continued off the road where it was a little bit less cleared, but gave us a glimpse at the rear of these units up against that wetland system. And then we stopped at the intermittent water course, where that'll be picked up by the drainage system. And then we continued on the roadway system to the roadway crossing. The sewer crossing is off adjacent to that, all the way to the end of the turnaround area and down to the detention basin. So that was what we accomplished on the site walk and for orientation. We do have copies of that plan if anybody wants additional copies. Kind of helps just for orientation and the perspective from when we were on site.
This is the same one we got at the sidewalk? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, take a couple more things.
Yeah, you got them. We'll get them out.
This map was created based on the original plan,
Correct.
because the one that you are presenting now is different.
Yeah, and I'll describe those differences. The location of the activities has not changed.
Okay.
We'll get into it, but what we did is we tried to address some of the grading issues
Okay.
and improve upon the grading plan, but all of the impact areas remain the same. So on the next sheet shows our proposed development, again, on that overall location map, just to see for orientation. So first, this type of development is an age-restricted housing development. So it's not a subdivision. The land will remain as a common interest community owned by a homeowners association. So all of this 24 and a half acres will remain under the same ownership as a homeowners association, with individual single-family homes part of that community. The age restriction is for all those residents to be 55 and older. There is a minor exception for a relative over 18 that can also reside. But for simplistic terms, it's a 55 and older community. I'll go through the housing styles a little bit later on, but this type of development is all private in terms of the roadway system is a private roadway system, not town-owned or maintained roads. The drainage system is also owned and maintained by the homeowners association. There'll be public sewer and public water that serves the property as well. The next sheet is the same, but just blown up a little bit more so I can show you the features of the development. So the entrance, again, will be off of Pondview Drive, just the same as the subdivision. Upon entering with the private road, there'll be a mailbox center with a kiosk for picking up mail delivery in a common location. This is the first stormwater basin located just to the north of the main road. The private road continues. We've made a rain garden, I'll get into in more detail later, but it's much larger. That's in this location here. The site has features in the turnaround areas with gazebos, common use areas, landscaping. There's an internal sidewalk system that connects from the gazebo to the mailbox center and up to the far end with another gazebo and common area there. The change that we made was to enlarge this turnaround area to better accommodate the grades. By making this larger, we're able to get these units more along the existing grade on both the low side and the high side. So it doesn't change the wetland impact areas. It's just in an effort to try to reduce some of the previous grading that was shown on the plans. We still have the same stormwater basin in that area here. And then by enlarging this turnaround area, we're going to greatly enlarge the rain garden system. And this is in response to comments we received from the town engineer and from the site walk that there's a definite priority with this plan to do everything possible to address stormwater management. And I'll go into that in more detail. But this makes these rain gardens really function as an additional detention basin. So each area now will have essentially 2 detention basins. The rain garden will be an area that will have flat, gentle slopes. There was a request on the site walk to try to incorporate additional stormwater, but to make it more in a gentle nature, more in a usable nature. So both of these areas will have gentle slopes where they can be mowed and used as common areas. And then the rain garden feature will be some of the plantings, and we have a detail of the soil mixture on the bottom so that it has that biological uptake of pollutants and the treatment functions that you'd have in a rain garden. On the next page, this is sheet W1 of your submission package, and this details the impact areas. So there are two direct wetland impact areas. The roadway crossing in the center of the project is right in this area here. This is very similar to what was proposed with the subdivision. There's twin 18-inch culverts that will carry that intermittent water course underneath the roadway system. The differences are that the road for this development will be 24 feet wide as opposed to the 30-foot wide town road. And we're also able to put the sidewalk immediately adjacent to the roadway there to keep that envelope more narrow. That reduces the direct wetland impact there to 1,287 square feet. I have a comparison chart later on to compare those. But that is the direct wetland impact associated with the roadway crossing. And then what we've done with this development is we separated out the sewer crossing from the roadway. So the previous design had the sewer crossing at the roadway within the same envelope, but obviously much deeper and having more of an impact. The sewer crossing is at a lower grade here and only requires 375 square feet of impact. It's a small impact area. But that allows, at a shallow crossing, it'll be restored and brought back to the current function in terms of a water course and vegetation. But by coming in at a lower grade, we're able to serve these homes without grinder pumps. The subdivision had those with grinder pumps, which of course have issues in terms of marketability or failures or issues without having gravity service. We're able to get gravity service by separating that out and also reducing the impact by having it as a shallow crossing. Starting the comparison, this was the subdivision that was approved, I believe in 1995. Highview Estates was approved. Some of the differences are with the town road standards, they had a wider road and a more broad curve that brought the road directly across that intermittent water course. This is that same roadway crossing, and then they had a similar cul-de-sac in this area here. The subdivision had proposed for 20 lots. The next sheet. This is the overall grading plan for that development. They had one stormwater basin up in this area here. The rest of the water was addressed in terms of stormwater by connecting to Pond View and down to the stormwater basin at the entrance near Route 63. We have 4, so we're trying to address it more on-site. For comparison, I tried to outline some of the key factors for comparing the different developments. The first part is the clearing and the impervious. So this subdivision required 11.3 acres of clearing, and that's shown in the outlined area in green. So with a conventional subdivision, you have larger setbacks in terms of, there's a 40-foot setback, I believe it was, to the front of the home, larger driveways. There was more clearing required for this type of development. Also, although not on the plans, there's always the potential for further encroachment because it's not controlled by a homeowners association. Potentially, there could be more clearing in the future. The impervious area of this development was approximately 3.7 acres. And again, this had a town road and town drainage. On the next sheet, by comparison, we have reduced the clearing from 11.3 down to 10.5 acres, so a reduction of 0.8 0.8 acres. The impervious area is about the same, 3.7 acres. And that's a reflection of 34 home sites compared to the 20, but about the same impervious area. So impervious stays about the same, the clearing is reduced, and again, this has private roads and private drainage. The homes, again, are a single-family home style, although it's in a common interest community. All the units will have two-car garages, 3 bedrooms. Usually the third bedroom is used more as an office. There's 3 different house plans in general usually. This is the first one. We can just scroll to the others. The second and the third. And then this was a project, we've done many of these. This is one in the Plainville-Farmington area. Just to give you an example of what the completed project looks like. Again, from a wetland standpoint, some of the impacts are a shorter driveway, less impervious, as opposed to a conventional home site. And then you'll see on the plans, there's some options where sometimes there's a small patio area, and then on the next one, there's also the option for a sunroom. What we did is include on this plan where every unit has the sunroom in the patio to be conservative in terms of the impervious area or the full build-out. Typically, about 50% of the people go for this option, but we've included it for all just to be conservative in the design. This was the aerial view of the development in Plainville and Farmington. Each project site is unique, but some of the same features you would see are, on this project is the split rail fencing and landscaping at the entrance. This is one of 4 rain gardens where we have rain garden features. They're landscaped, and then there's a stone trench on the bottom. This has that perimeter buffering. The requirements here to have a 50-foot perimeter buffering we have on this project, and it would be the same here. And then trying to have some of these looped areas that provide that community feel within those loop sections. And then this was the mailbox center. This is when it's still under construction within that development. So some similarities to this development as well. The next section I want to go through is with stormwater. And again, trying to get a perspective in terms of where this site is in the town and comparison to the areas that are of real concern in the town. So it's been brought to our attention quite a bit that there's flooding issues at the intersection here of Route 63 at the Burger King site, the Shaker site, and that's all leading down to Steel Brook. This shows our site on the USGS map, and we are closer to the crest than to Steel Brook. So these are those opportunities, I'm sure you're well aware, when applicants come in front, that if you're towards the upper portions of the stormwater, of the watershed, you want to try to detain as much as you can on the upper portions, and then the lower portions, in terms of the gradient close to Steel Brook, you would want to release quicker. All of this is to extend the time, try to prolong the rates that the water is released. So we're focusing clearly here on detaining as much as we can on the site. And that's going to provide a benefit not just to our site, but everything down gradient from us. The more we detain, the more we benefit the town as a whole. The next sheet is from the DEP website. And what I wanted to show here is just how we're in line with how they delineate their watersheds. This is the boundary of the area that leads down to Steel Brook, which is down here. And then the site is in this location here. And this green line that I added to the plan, with our site being bisected here, the southern half of the site goes to Pondview Drive into that detention basin. It's the northern part of the site that today, from Highgate all the way down to Burger King, there is no detention at all. So that water is coming from the crest and coming down to Route 63 without any detention. And we'll be adding detention there to try to slow down those rates and to hold back the water to prevent some of that downstream flooding. The next sheet just shows that with the contours. Again, there's that divide line. The southern part of the site going to Pondview, the northern part going directly to Route 63. The stormwater report that we prepared is going to be revised per the town engineer's comments, but I'll go through what we've developed and then some of the changes that we'll be making. But we developed the stormwater modeling for 4 different watersheds. So what's called existing 1, EX1, is the area of the site that comes through out to that stub where Pondview, the Pondview stub that's there. That is approximately 8 acres that leads to that point. EX2 is the far northern portion, and that leads to the area of the future detention basin. That is approximately 10 acres. And this includes a portion of Highgate and the lawn areas and the northern portion of our site. So those are the 2 critical ones, I would say, in terms of how we can have opportunities to manage the flow. The other 2 are what I call EX3. This is the remainder of the site that leads where we started the site walk. There's a 30-inch culvert at the south of Butter. There's a culvert that's there, and that water is eventually collected and brought to the pond detention basin down near Route 63. This is about 7.7 acres. And then the 4th area is in the center of the site. That's that larger intermittent water course where the roadway crossing is taking place. And I know there were questions even on the site at the time how much water is leading to that. And we have approximately 5.6 acres that's leading from the crest of the hill through that water course and down. On the next sheet. So with the stormwater modeling, just to, I'm sure you're aware, but just for the public and everyone, the general concept is to delineate a watershed and run a model that tries to estimate the runoff based upon the soil conditions and the coverage that exists pre-development and then in the post-development condition. In the post-development condition, it reflects the clearing that takes place, it reflects the impervious area, and then that is managed through stormwater management, in this case, a series of 2 basins in each half of the site that will retain and detain stormwater and release it at a rate that is less than what's there today. So again, we're trying to have detention on the site that releases at a lesser rate than the pre-development, so that we have 0 increase in runoff, 0 increase in the runoff rate. For the 4 watersheds, the same as the existing, we have them in the proposed condition. For PR1, proposed 1, which is that most of the southern portion of the site comes out through that stormwater basin, that has a reduction of 5% in the 5-year storm, up to 20% in the 100-year storm. For the northern part of the site, we had modeled, again, we'll be revising the model, but at the time of submission that we had a 22% decrease in the 100-year storm and a 40% decrease in the 2-year storm. The remaining areas don't have detention, but we've taken some of that area and detained it and managed it, and thereby also having a reduction by addressing and controlling some of that other water. So for PR3, there's a consistent 20% reduction leading to that 30-inch culvert. And then through the center of the project, there's a 2% reduction through the main watercourse area. In all cases, there'll be a reduction in the peak discharge from the site and down gradient as well. This will decrease the peak discharge rates. This is in your package showing the first stormwater basin. All the stormwater basins have properties for water quality and detention. There's a riprap filter berm that will trap the sediment within the majority portion of the basin and then prior to its discharge. As discussed in the site walk, this basin is going to be redirected to Pondview so as to not have any increase towards the north and Route 63. So that way it'll be further treated again by the existing detention basin out at Route 63 before, at the Pondview entrance. Similarly, this is the north stormwater basin. We walked up to where the spillway is, the flared end, and the limit of the clearing. This slope that'll be built to create this depression is a 3-to-1 slope. So 2-to-1 is the max slope that is stable. We've gone to 3-to-1, which is more stable and can be maintained easier. So with 3-to-1 slopes on a lot of projects, we haven't had issues with that type of slope. It can be built in steps and compacted. The erosion control measures will be in place prior to construction. So I wouldn't expect any issues with this being developed and constructed and stabilized, and this would be done before the stormwater system connects to it. This is very common on projects, and I wouldn't expect an issue with that. We are looking into whether this does require the DEP permit, because it still only retains at a maximum of 3.5 feet of water. So I'm looking to get clarification as to whether a separate permit from DEP is required. We'll find that out. The rain gardens are going to be much larger, as was shown on the plan, but those have the additional feature of the soil mixture for the biological treatment and the plantings that provide that water quality treatment. This again is the comparison. We did the comparison of the impervious areas, but now I want to go back to the comparison of the wetland impacts and as a summary. So our development, again, has between the small area, the 375 square feet for the sewer crossing, and then the roadway crossing, has a total wetland impact of 1,662 square feet. And then an upland review area impact, I use the 50 feet for comparison to the subdivision. I know that's not the current standard, but just to have apples to apples to the subdivision numbers. The 50-foot impact area on this development was 42,372, so approximately 1 acre. By comparison, on the next sheet, the subdivision went from 1,662 square feet of direct wetland impact to 2,077. So we've reduced the direct wetland impact by about 400 square feet. Also, the subdivision had 125 feet of linear impact to the watercourse on the south, and it also had 150 feet of linear impact to the watercourse on the north. We've avoided both of those. The upland review area impact, which is shown in red here, was about 1.5 acres, 63,000 square feet, and we reduced that to 1 acre. So in addition to reducing the clearing, we've reduced the wetland impact, direct wetland impact, and the review area impact. We're working on, we wanted to try to address the comments from the site walk, comments from the town engineer, and work on those revisions. So the revisions that are in progress are to address the town engineer's comments with updating the model to reflect the TR55 model for the soil conditions, and that will be completed. From the site walk, it was clearly evident that we want to do everything to address stormwater management. As you see on the plans before you, we've doubled the stormwater management areas. So that will be completed in terms of those revisions to demonstrate that we are retaining and detaining as much on site to prevent any downstream impacts. And that when these revisions are complete, that this project will not only address the town standards on site, but provide a needed beneficial impact downstream to reduce the peak flows off-site. At this point, to continue our presentation, I'll ask Matt Sanford to go through our wetland delineation.
Good evening. For the record, it's Matthew Sanford with SLR. I'm a professional wetland scientist and registered soil scientist. I think that the first thing we'll do is we'll kind of go back to existing conditions, and my work is related to this project. So back in November of 2023, we were retained to go out to this site and actually delineate the wetlands and watercourses on this particular site. Before we do that, as soil scientists, though, is we take a step back and look at the types of soils that are anticipated to be on the site through the NRCS Web Soil Survey. And when we look at the NRCS Web Soil Survey, there's some specific soil types that are indicative of this, of Watertown itself and of these sites. And those include dense till soils, as we call them, usually the Paxton Montauk series, which is a well-drained soil, the Woodbridge series, which is a moderately well-drained soil, and then typically the Ridgeberry Leicester-Whitman series. And in the Ridgeberry itself, you could have two types of drainage classes in soils, somewhat poorly drained and poorly drained. And as you move into the Leicester-Whitman part of the soil series, those become the very poorly drained soils. So we have a combination of all five of these soils on this particular site. Our delineation is based on soils in the state of Connecticut, and we're looking at drainage class associated with that. There were 3 primary wetland systems delineated on the site. Those belong to for primarily the class of Ridgeberry soils, with the exception of the area in Wetland B, located here in the green, where you start to get some very poorly drained Leicester soils. There were 3 wetland systems delineated on site. The first one, located along the southern part of the property, is called Wetland Series A. That wetland there is a hillside slope wetland. We also call it a palustrine forested wetland, more commonly called red maple swamp, as you may have heard earlier in a different presentation. It has an intermittent watercourse as well that runs right along the eastern edge of that wetland and eventually makes its way down under Pondview Drive through the actual forested area on the opposite side of these houses on Pondview Drive, and eventually probably makes its way down into the stormwater basin. Again, that wetland is a red maple swamp, so the dominant trees in that area are red maples, yellow birch, understories predominantly spice bush, little winterberry, and there's the dominance of Japanese barberry, which is a non-native invasive shrub that's difficult to walk through in those wetlands. In addition, along the borders, the upland transition zone from the wetland to the forested uplands in here is, you'll notice that there are some invasive species such as multiflora rose, as well as winged euonymus in this particular area. Again, all indicating past historical disturbances of the site. If we go back to the 1934 aerials in the 1950s and the 60s, this area was a pasture at one time and has now obviously been reclaimed as a forested environment. Wetland Area B, located along the central portion of the site right here, is fed by an intermittent watercourse that originates up in this open space area of the town. It flows from west to east on this particular graphic down a steep gradient channel. Eventually, as it reaches this wider area of wetland, that area becomes, again, a forested wetland, similar to Wetland A. In this forested wetland, you have, again, red maple, yellow birch, and you have some American elm that comes into play here. Spice bush, winterberry, high bush blueberry in this particular area. There's also some Phragmites growing in this wetland as well, so that we do have some other emergent type wetland vegetation growing in this particular wetland. Wetland C, located right here, is another forested slope wetland. This wetland is located directly behind these 4 houses on Pondview Drive. The wetland actually flows from west to east down towards Route 63. This is another disturbed wetland, a lot of Japanese barberry in the understory. Hydrology from this one is both stormwater runoff from the groundwater discharge, as well as there's inputs from the neighboring properties, whether those are curtain drains, roof leader drains, and or some pumps from basements. They are discharging water into that wetland as part of its hydrologic source. Lastly, there is just off the site, originating off the site is a intermittent water course that eventually does end up back on the site, and that discharges back into this wetland B series. Everything that I have described has been summarized in a wetlands report that the commission has. In addition to just describing the wetlands themselves and the soil types, we also did a functions and values assessment per your regulations. And in terms of functions and values, primarily all 3 of the wetlands on the site, wetland A, B, and C, its principal function is groundwater discharge. And on the site walk, I believe the commissioners were able to see that function out there with the groundwater being high at the surface and flowing in the intermittent water courses that were there, so there's groundwater discharge ongoing on that site. In addition, the wetlands, especially Wetland B, in this location here, portions of Wetland A, also have the ability to have sediment retention, nutrient retention, because they have a high stem density. So when we have a high stem density in a wetland system, if there are nutrients coming from the upper parts of the watershed, that vegetation is able to absorb any nutrients that may be coming down. And so that provides, that's a principal function of those wetlands. The intermittent water courses that we've talked about, the banks are all stabilized by vegetation. They're in good shape, they're not eroding. And so that's a principal function of those intermittent water courses. In terms of the impacts, Mr. Quirk went through each of the impacts associated with the project. The first one being the crossing of the intermittent water course. Again, when we look at the function and value of that intermittent water course, through flow or maintaining through flow because the groundwater discharge is probably the most critical component to maintain on an intermittent water course crossing, and that's going to be provided by two 18-inch culverts that'll be able to maintain that through flow from point A, the high point, to the low point below it. And so that's the function you want to protect in that intermittent water course, is to make sure you have flow going back to the wetland, which would be Wetland B, this flat area down here. That is a 1,287 square foot impact. It's actually less of an impact than was originally proposed on the approved subdivision for the site. The second impact that I want to talk about is a temporary impact. Obviously, the culvert is a permanent impact, right? You're permanently putting a portion of the intermittent water course in a pipe. But again, you're maintaining the function and value, which is through flow of that intermittent water course. Second one is a temporary impact, as we call them. And temporary impacts mean you're going to have to disturb a water course, wetland, or whatever it might be temporarily to perform that particular function, in this case, a sewer line. So what would happen in this case is they would actually excavate within the intermittent water course channel and the uplands on either side of it to allow for the installation of a sewer line underneath. Then what happens is that sewer line gets installed, they backfill that trench, and they regrade the intermittent water course to match the previous conditions. And then they obviously stabilize the slopes on either side with a native seed mix, returning it back to its original state. And that is a temporary impact. And I believe that impact is 375 square feet, as shown on our plans. So overall, in terms of my professional opinion as a wetland scientist and soil scientist in terms of adverse impacts, the plan that is before this commission this evening has less direct wetland impacts proposed than the previously approved plan. Mr. Quirk had eloquently gone through all the stormwater related management measures that are being implemented on this particular site. Those are critical to obviously protecting water quality within the wetlands and in the water courses, and the water quality that gets eventually into Steel Brook. But it also is important in terms of maintaining hydrology to those wetlands. The basins have all been designed in accordance with the Stormwater Quality Manual to protect and or manage nutrients, sediment. As we talked about, one of the primary functions of wetlands are managing nutrients and sediment. Well, we'd like to manage those before it actually gets into the wetlands, and that's done through the stormwater management basins themselves. Also, there's a robust sediment erosion control plan that's been provided for this particular project, and that's going to be critical for protecting these wetlands, especially on the downslope of this development, and that is, again, designed in accordance with the 2002 sediment erosion control manual. With that being said, I think that concludes my part of the presentation this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, I think as far as our formal presentation, that concludes that portion, and we're happy to answer questions or hear from the public and answer questions at that point.
I have a couple of questions, and one of them, I think you guys did an excellent presentation. I will not remember all the numbers, but during the presentation, you said that we do not have an existing detention pond up there, so all the water behind Burger King that everybody, I think, is concerned, it is not detained by any detention pond, it's all water?
That's correct.
So there's anything, okay.
I think maybe page 4 might show that. I don't know if I remember the pages, let's see. Or we can use this one, yeah. So, right, this proposed Area 2,
Okay.
which is about the same as existing Area 2. Today, I'm not aware of any detention from Highgate. This water comes down through either this water course here or just overland down to the wetlands. So correct, there's no detention from the crest here all the way down to Burger King here.
So this detention pond that you propose to put in will really improve the whole situation, am I correct?
That's the intent, yes, yep.
And the whole project is maintained by the association, correct?
That's correct.
So who will maintain, and how do we know that they get done, like the detention pond, they get cleaned every couple years? Will that be part of the paper? So the town is not responsible, correct?
No, but several things we've done a lot of these projects, and with other towns, what we've done is that, well, first of all, I would expect that a stipulation would be, if there's an approval, that during construction, that I or another consultant would be required to do inspections and provide the reports to the town during construction after an inch rainfall event to check on the erosion control measures and the construction, and that they're abiding by the plans. So that's the first check during construction. And then, of course, upon completion of the project, it would be review that I would review the plans to indicate that the construction conforms to the proposed plans. After that, what's typically done is we have a maintenance plan on the plans, is that sometimes the towns would require, and I would recommend, that the reports from the homeowners association are submitted to the town indicating that it said that sediment needed to be removed when it reaches a certain level, that report is submitted every year or every other year, that is submitted to the town. So that does give some leverage to the town if they don't submit that, to indicate to the homeowners association that they're not in conformance. But the responsibility of the maintenance is on the homeowners association, and we could provide those checks as part of the approval to the town, that's how it's checked that it does take place.
And during the field trip on Saturday, the middle, where all the water was going down, there was an area that you were not sure if there were separate water?
There was this wetland area here. We've had, as you all know, I think it came down as the wettest winter on record for December, January, February. We had over 18 inches of rain. It was the wettest winter on record. And I think what's happening is some of this wetland area, there's a little bit of a rill that's coming down. And normally that would flow this direction, and there's some water that's coming this direction. So that area, though, that rill will be directed to the water course the way it would normally flow down. It's just been such an exceptionally
And the other
wet
thing,
year.
during the trip on the Saturday, I think Musa suggested that some of the flow will go the other way towards the Shred Turnpike. Did you have a chance to look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're in agreement that this detention basin here was being directed out to this wetland system. And knowing that previously all of this was part of Highview Estates and was part of that subdivision pond at the entrance, the outlet from this basin will be directed to Pondview so that it then gets further treated by the stormwater basin there. So we're in complete agreement that that's the best way to address it. So that will provide another improvement to the businesses on Route 63, where rather than this being directed to the wetland system, it gets properly managed through the stormwater contained system.
You're saying all the gutters on each unit, they're going to go?
In this case, we're not doing, we like to try to do recharge units and recharge the groundwater as much as possible. We did do soil testing out here, and it's pretty consistent that between 28 and 30 inches, there's seasonal high groundwater. So it really doesn't support groundwater recharge of the roof water. So in this case, all the roof leaders will be connected to the stormwater system and managed that way. It's just a better way on this project to ensure that the roof water is not exacerbating any down gradient situations and stormwater situations. We're going to manage it through the stormwater basin.
Thank you.
This is a new subdivision permit, correct? Yes.
Well, it's not a subdivision,
Well,
but yeah.
we're
So
back to a 100-foot setback. You had 50 here. Our regulations require 100.
Yes, and I did that for the comparison because the previous plan had 50 on their plans and just for uniformity, but you're correct, this is under the
So
regulations.
this plan, I still see it at 50. It's going to 100.
It needs to be adjusted, correct.
And you're going to say that existing retention pond on Pondview is going to handle this?
No, we're managing stormwater on site.
No.
But
You
then-
say you're piping it into the existing
Right.
pond. That existing pond, I'll bring you some pictures for the next meeting.
Sure, but let me clarify. We are addressing zero increase in runoff, the peak rates of discharge on site. So we're not going to have any additional flow go down, leaving the site. But rather than connecting that flow to the wetland system here, it's connecting through Pondview, which was always the plan through Highview Estates anyway. But it's not more water than presently comes from the site down to there anyway.
I think we'll have to investigate that further. There's a problem there already. That pond overtops on every storm, that existing pond. So either you got to tie it in, make another pond, or tie it in somewhere else.
I will
It doesn't,
investigate.
there's pictures, and if
Okay.
there's any neighbors here, they can contest to that.
Okay, I will study that some more.
Can you just clarify a little bit? You just said through the chair that you had to add an extra 50 feet to the buffer and go from 50-foot setbacks to 100-foot setbacks. Does that change your mapping at all?
We need to show that on the mapping. What I was doing was for the comparison was showing that the previous subdivision had 50, so I had those numbers. So I was comparing the 50 to the 50, so that it's an apples to apples comparison. But your regulations are for a 100-foot upland review area, and we will show that on the mapping.
Okay, but it's not going to change the layout of the units?
No, we're not proposing to change the layout, no. No.
Okay. Because most of these are set right around the 50-foot
That's
to the
correct.
back porches, you said, right?
That's correct.
If-
So that's
if
part
they
of-
so choose to put them in?
No, that'll be part of the permit, if it's approved, that those units are within the upland review area. That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Any questions from wetlands?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that the maintenance of the detention ponds will be the responsibility of the homeowner association.
Correct.
Are you going to recommend a maintenance plan that how often that should be cleaned?
Yes, and that should be, I don't know if I have the plan here, but there's a maintenance schedule for the stormwater basins already on the plans, and it indicates there's certain items that are to be done annually, there's a schedule for each of those items. That's presently on the plans. And what some towns have done is stipulated that an annual report from the homeowners association be provided to the town, and that just gives some leverage to the town if there's an issue that then they could cite the homeowners association for not complying with the plan.
And the
That's a
association
choice.
will enforce that, the
Correct.
maintenance plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And on the site, we discussed that there is an existing problem behind Burger King, and my concern was that you are not adding to that problem. Can you please, for the record, state that this plan doesn't have any additional adverse impact on that area?
Yes, the stormwater management plan here will reduce the peak discharge rates from the site and not make the rates any worse, will reduce the rates of runoff towards any of the down gradient properties.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sanford, on the sidewalk, we noticed, all of us, that it was very wet. And right now, we have a forested land, and you know that the canopy is absorbing some of the waters when it rains. What will be the difference when they cut these trees and have lawn there? Do you think that if we get this kind of storms, there will be like a standing water on the lawns, or because the soil is not absorbing that much? Can you please explain that?
So, for the record, Matt Sanford, I think a couple things to take into consideration when looking at, what would happen or what will be the conditions post, I guess, construction. There's quite a bit of grade change that's going to be ongoing on the site, as I'm sure the commission has reviewed grading plans. So there's going to be changes to grades out there. There is some cutting and there's some filling in specific areas. And so I don't anticipate that the lawns that'll be there are going to be super saturated. And any water that, any water that does end up at or near the surface seasonally, again, when you have a record rainfall, as we had in this state over the last 4 or 5 months, and it's more rain tomorrow, there's water pouring out of every little nook and cranny right now on just about every site in Connecticut. So you're looking at probably worst case scenarios in terms of how high groundwater is right now. On a normal year, groundwater levels are not this high. And so I don't anticipate there being a lot of super saturated lawn areas on the site. The other thing to keep in mind is that as part of the watershed analysis that Mr. Cork has done is that areas obviously upgrading of the new proposed roadways are going to be collected in the stormwater system and will be detained on site. So those areas will help mitigate any, I guess, water issues that are accounted for in seasons like we are in, where it's super wet. But I don't see any significant change long-term in terms of the hydrology going from forested to a grassed environment on this particular site. And that's not atypical of what we've seen on other sites across Connecticut when we've taken a forested environment and converted it into lawn.
Okay, because Mr. Court mentioned that they cannot produce underground system because the water level is high in that area. Yeah. And that was my concern, that what happens with all that water that comes in, there is no trees to observe some of the water. So those lawns will be flooded or not? That was
so the water's still going to infiltrate through the soil, even after trees are removed, right? Water tends to want to move down gradient through the soil. In these sites, it's a little slower because it's a dense till, but at the end of the day, it's still going to migrate as it does normally, whether it's a forested environment or a grass environment. It's still going to percolate and infiltrate through that soil.
Thank you. And also, on the sidewalk, there are a few areas that there was like concentrated running water that we thought that maybe they are intermittent water course, but you said that that is a rail.
Yeah.
Can you please explain that what is
Absolutely.
the difference between the rail and
Intermittent water course.
Intermittent water course.
All right, so let's talk about intermittent water course first, because that's the definition that we're held to as soil scientists in terms of when we delineate a water course, or an intermittent water course in this case. So the definition of an intermittent water course must have a defined channel / banks as a result of water moving down gradient through the topography. All right, so that's the must. You must have that. That's the first thing to indicate that there's a potential for an intermittent water course. Then there's 3 criteria that we need to look at beyond the evidence of bank and channel. And in order to meet an intermittent water course, you must have 2 out of the 3, okay? So here are the 3. The first one is that there's evidence of alluvial deposition, sediment movement, debris movement caused by water. Second one is that the channel itself has the ability to support hydrophytic vegetation, which usually means wetland vegetation. And the third one is that the channel and water course or feature must have water longer than 24 hours after a typical rainstorm. So there must be water flowing consistently in it, longer than 24 hours. So that's the definition of a water course, all right? And so you have to meet 2 out of those 3 secondary criteria. Obviously, the intermittent water course crossing that we're actually crossing and having an impact on has not only defined banks, channel, has water well beyond 24 hours, but also has alluvial deposition, as some of the commissioner members observed during the site walk. The other areas that are in question are these, I call real features, that under extreme seasonally high water table and or rain events, which again, we have been in for 6 months, you will get some groundwater and surface water moving down those features. I can say that when I was out there in November of 2023, that the areas that we saw those rills were bone dry. I could also say back in 2007, when I originally flagged this property along with William Root, another registered soil scientist, and those were done during July, August, and October of that year, 2007, those areas were dry as well. Again, we were not seeing rain events like we are currently seeing both in the latter part of 2023 as well as in the early part of 2024. So those areas, in my professional opinion, don't meet the definition of intermittent watercourse. They are a rill.
Commissioner.
One more question for Mr. Quirk. And one location I recommended to put a pipe there in one of those rails. Is that added to the plan?
That is going to be added to the plan. It's not presently added to the plans that you have, but
Okay, because
that
I
will be.
recommend to put a pipe there because you don't
Yes.
want the water to go over the road.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to just add that some of the rills, not in all cases, but on the north end of the site, in some of the other areas, it was dry, because I walked ahead of the track vehicle we were there for, that went ahead to clear these paths for the commission to walk and also to do the soil tests. And there was not a rill until the track vehicle went through. So some of this was just creating some of these channels as part of the access to the site. Not all the cases, not the rill that we're talking about there, and not the intermittent water course that is delineated. But on the north end, for example, with that slope, that was due to just accessing the site and creating a channel that focused the water there. So some of these would not be there if it weren't for that just recent activity to access the site.
Paul, do you have any questions or answers? Do you agree that, I don't think that existing pond can handle any more stormwater?
A couple things, Mr. Chairman. There's no grading on the new layouts that Mr. Quirk submitted, and I'd like to see those and what the actual collection system, like is Rain Garden 2, is that going to be discharged into the northern detention basin, or is that supposed to be a self-contained area? It's not clear on here.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the final, grading.
So you're going to come back to us with a 100-foot
absolutely. Yeah, we want to
setback
try
map,
to.
another retention pond, right?
Yeah, we wanted to gather, from the public, from the sidewalk,
Yeah.
from the town comments, gather everything and make sure to address it all completely.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application? Anybody from the public? Nobody from the public on this? Make a motion to continue the public hearing.
Make a motion that we continue the public hearing on application 2024-7 Newport Realty Group for the construction of Turnberry Estates and a 34-unit active adult community on a 24.6 acre parcel to be located off Pondview Drive.
Second. Motion made and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. 4, regular meeting. 5, public participation. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Anybody from the public? 6, action on minutes. A, regular meeting, March 14th, 2024.
You don't have the minutes,
No, I know.
Mr. Chairman, just table it,
Right.
please.
I make a motion that we table the minutes.
Second. The motion's made and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. 7, pending application 2023-16 of Burr Hall Farm LLC for development of a 6.6 acre parcel of land farming commercial use located on Olive Road.
Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting, you directed me to draft a motion for you, and I did it. That's in our packet. And I also want to clear one issue that was raised at the last meeting regarding the access to the property from Middlebury. We leave that issue to the Planning and Zoning Commission because that is not under our
Okay.
jurisdiction. Yes. And I look at the maps that even if they go from Middlebury, the impact will be the same on the wetlands because those bridges will be constructed anyway.
Right, well, planning
Yes.
and zoning can.
That is for
Yes,
P and Z,
right.
and please take time to review the motion that I gave it to you, and then see if you agree, you can read it into the record.
Just for the record, I know there was some comments made at the planning zoning meeting.
Mr.
No.
Chairman, they
Okay.
cannot
Okay.
participate
Right, I
anymore.
didn't know if there was any
Yes,
issues.
they are done.
All right. Good. Yeah, make a motion to approve it. That's- yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Make the motion.
Which one is this one?
The draft motion
Yeah.
for this application right here. The draft motion. We don't have to read it.
Why don't you make it? I was not at the meetings.
Make the motion.
I make a motion to approve the draft motion for approval for application 2023-16.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. B, application 2024-1 of Carrier Construction Incorporated for 6-lot residential subdivision, construction of associated roads and construction of 6 new homes. Let's make a,
I'll make a motion to,
make a draft motion for next meeting. For Carrier. You gotta make a draft
we-
motion.
aren't we
Approve.
tabling him?
Did you read the motion?
No. Oh, I thought you said for us to read it. No.
Roseanne, we have a copy of that to give it to them.
I thought they had it, no?
No, we didn't give it to them. It's
Oh.
only for commission.
Well, it's approved then. Yeah, we're tabling this one.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just give him the
right.
paper.
Yeah.
I'm not reading that.
You gotta get Ned to read it. Oh, I thought you had it in your packet anyways.
Please just
Huh?
read it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my God.
Hope you brought breakfast.
Yeah.
Draft motion for approval. Whereas the Watertown Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency, the agency, has received an application from Burr Hall Farm LLC for development of a 68.6 acre parcel of land for farming/commercial uses located on Olive Road, Watertown, Connecticut, as shown on a site development plan titled Burr Hall Farm, permitting plan set not for construction, 0 on Olive Road, Watertown, Connecticut, MBL 167-22-2, sheets C 1.1, C 2.0 through C 2.2, C 3.1, C 4.1 through C 4. I guess it's supposed to be .8. C 5.1, C 5.2, C 6.1, and C 6.2, dated November 1st, 2023, revised March 12th, 2024, prepared by Civil One. Whereas the agency determined that the proposed activities as shown on the plan set constitute a significant activity per section 2.1 of the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Regulations of the Town of Watertown, the regulations. Whereas the agency has evaluated the application according to the standards and criteria for a decision per section 10.2 of the regulations and carrying out the purposes and policies of section 22A-26 to 22A-45 of the Connecticut General Statutes, including matters related to regulating, licensing, and enforcing of the provisions thereof. You guys done?
No.
Whereas the agency has convened meetings and public hearings on November 16th, 2023, December 14th, 2023, January 11th, 2024, February 8th, 2024, March 14th, 2024, and April 11th, 2024. Whereas the agency has held a site walk on December 9th, 2023. Whereas the agency has hired SLR International Corporation as an independent third party to review and comment on that application. Whereas the agency has carefully considered all the evidence and testimony received at the duly called public hearings and meetings from applicant team, staff, SLR engineer, and the public. Whereas the agency recognizes that inland wetlands and watercourses of the state of Connecticut and the town of Watertown are indispensable, irreplaceable, and a fragile natural resource. Whereas the agency recognizes pursuant to section 1.1 of the regulations, the preservation and protection of the wetland and watercourses from random, unnecessary, undesirable, and unregulated uses, disturbance, or destruction is in the public interest and is essential to the health, wealth, and safety of the citizens of the state. Whereas the purpose of the regulations is to protect the citizens of the state by making provisions for the protection of inland wetland agency watercourse by 1, minimizing their disturbance and pollution, 2, maintaining and improving water quality in accordance with the highest standards set forth by federal, state, and local authority, 3, preventing damage from erosion, turbidity, or siltation, 4, to deter and inhibit the danger of flooding and pollution, 5, to protect and enhance the quality of wetlands and watercourses for their conservation, 6, to protect the state's potable water supply and to provide an orderly process to balance the need for the economic growth of the town and state use of its land with the need to protect the environment and ecology, to guarantee to the people of the town of Watertown and state the safety of such natural resources for their benefit and enjoyment and for the benefit and enjoyment of generations yet unborn. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the agency approves application 2023-16 of Burr Hall Farm LLC with the following conditions and modifications. 1, the permittee shall notify wetlands enforcement officer in writing at least 3 business days prior to the commencement of work on site and upon its completion. 2, if the approved activities are not initiated on or before April 11th, 2029, said activity shall cease, and if not previously revoked or specifically renewed or extended, this permit shall be invalid. Any request to renew or extend the expiration date of a permit should be filed in accordance with Section 11 of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulations of the Town of Watertown. Expired permits may not be renewed, and the wetland agency may require a new application for regulated activities. 3, all work and all regulated activities conducted pursuant to this approval shall be consistent with the permitting plan set and terms and conditions of this permit. Any structures, excavation, fill, obstructions, encroachment, or regulated activities not specifically identified and approved herein shall constitute a violation of this permit and may result in its modification, suspension, or revocation. 4, this permit is not transferable without the written consent of the Conservation Commission, Inland Wetland Agency. 5, in evaluating this application, the Wetland Agency has relied on information provided by the applicant. If such information is subsequently proved to be false, incomplete, or misleading, this permit may be modified, suspended, or revoked, and the permittee may be subject to any other remedies or penalties provided by law. 6, the permittee shall employ management practices consistent with the terms and conditions of this permit to control stormwater discharges and prevent erosion and sedimentation and to otherwise prevent pollution of wetlands and watercourses. The permittee shall immediately inform the agency of any problems involving wetlands or watercourses that have developed during or that are caused by the approved work. 7, no equipment or material, including without limitation, fill, construction materials, or debris shall be deposited, placed, or stored in any wetland or watercourse on or off-site unless specifically approved by this permit. 8, the permit is subject to and does not derogate any rights of powers to the town of Watertown, conveys no property rights or exclusive privileges, and is subject to all public and private rights and to all applicable federal, state, and local laws. In conducting and maintaining any activities approved herein, the permittee may not cause pollution, impairment, or destruction of the inland wetlands and watercourses of the town of Watertown. 9, if the activity approved by the Inland Wetlands permit also involves activity for a project that requires state or federal approval, Torrington Area Health District, zoning or subdivision approval, special permit, variance, or special exemption, no work pursuant to the wetlands permit may begin until such approval is obtained. 10, the permittee shall maintain sediment and erosion controls at the site in such an operable condition as to prevent the pollution of wetlands and watercourses. Said controls are to be inspected by the permittee for deficiencies at least once per week and immediately after rains. The permittee shall correct any such deficiencies within 24 hours of said deficiency being found. The permittee shall maintain such controls measures and permittee shall maintain such control measures until all areas of disturbed soils at the site are stabilized. 11, a wetland performance bond shall be posted by Burr Hall Farm LLC for the proposed erosion and sediment control measures. The bond estimate shall be provided by the applicant to the Department of Public Works for review and approval. 12, there shall be no other on-site disturbance except what is proposed by the final plans for construction and approved by the commission within the limits of clearing and regulated areas. 13, a pre-construction meeting shall be held with agency staff prior to any on-site activity. A 24-hour name, address, and telephone number must be provided by the site construction manager, and written notification is required 3 business days prior to any on-site activity. 14, the permittee must minimize the amount of soil disturbance on site at any one time. A narrative phasing plan must be submitted for review and approval by town engineer and wetlands enforcement officer. 15, final site plans and filing, final site plans and filing Mylar of the site development plan must be signed and dated by the soil scientist who delineated the wetlands on the site. Final motion for approval shall be printed on the final Mylar. 16, prior to the commencement of soil disturbance within regulated areas, disturbance limits shall be demarcated with silt fence. 17, if the Planning and Zoning Commission or Department of Public Works require improvement to Olive Road, the permittee shall apply for a wetland permit for additional regulated activities associated with the road improvement.
This is your motion, should be seconded and then vote on it.
Which we already did.
Second.
Okay.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
He's got another one to read. Application 2024-1 of Carrier Construction for the 6-lot residential subdivision, construction of associated roadways, and construction of 6 new homes, Munson Road, Watertown.
Motion to table application 2024-1.
Right, we need to have table, then you have Musa write a draft motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Make sure on that draft motion, you include a letter or something from the city of Waterbury. I want something in writing from them.
Yeah, on your permit, I always say that if this project requires approval from other agencies like planning and zoning, DEP, yeah, and I include the city of Waterbury too.
Okay.
They have to get those permits.
Thank you. So motion to make a draft motion and table application 2024-1.
Motion made in second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, any abstention? Motion carries. C, application 2024-5 of William Zarella for the construction of a covered boat slip on the shore of Lake Winnemucca, an ADA compliant ramp, installation of a ground-mounted solar panels, upland review area, 229 Crusoe Drive. Paul, you had a letter that was written in here about this, correct?
I did, Mr. Chairman. I had a few issues,
Yeah.
nothing that couldn't be solved, but they weren't on, I haven't seen a revised plan for that or anything.
We don't have a revised plan, correct?
No, correct.
So I guess we'll table it until we receive
No,
it.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, the issues that you have concern about, are they something that when they apply for a zoning permit can be
Correct. Yeah, they
can be located?
Yeah.
Because
No,
for
but it
the
sound-
commission, it's only the regulated activities in front of you.
Yeah, but it sounds like they have to move the driveway, so it could change, like, the whole plan.
No, it is not the driveway that Paul is talking about is the third driveway from the road into the property.
Correct.
That is not in front of you for approval or denial. They are providing a pathway, like a path from the house to where they want to put the boathouse. But that existing driveway is not an issue for you. That is between the Department of Public Works and Planning and Zoning. When they submit an application for a zoning permit, they will take care of that.
Okay.
For you, it is just regulated activities.
Right, so we can table and make a draft motion for next.
Yes,
Right.
if you want to do that.
Right.
Yeah, I'll move that, table application 2024-5, William Zarella for construction of covered boat slip on the shore of Lake Winnemucca. And make a motion for the next, draft motion for the next meeting.
Okay.
Motion made in second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, any abstention? Motion carries, thank you. D, application 2024-6 of John Dodona for a subdivision of a 13.9 acre parcel into 2 lots on Watertown. All we're approving here, Moose, is we're not approving any lots.
Yes, let Mr. DeZona explain what he wants to do, and then we can talk about it, yes.
Right, but we're not approving the lots.
No.
We're improving the
No.
so we don't need a plan.
Just the subdivision, not construction.
No construction, no wetlands, no, just,
Mr. DeZona, do you want to talk what
Right.
you want to do?
as long as tonight, that's all we're approving. We're not approving the development of those 2 lots, correct?
Yes, we're just, like I say, first of all, John Dodona, owner of 720 Thompson Road. We're looking just for the conceptual thought of that subdivision of that property. The project before you is not necessarily one that's going to be done. This is just something to show that the project does work on that property. I know that Mr. Bunovich had asked for some things to be drawn up by the engineer to show that it could be developed, and it could be developed in such a way that it's feasible.
And just for the record, whenever you are ready to build on that lot, if there is any wetland activity or within the regulated area, you have to come back to this commission with a new application. That
With-
is what the commission wants.
That's what I.
With a site plan?
Yes.
That-
For
Yes,
both lots,
I understand
correct.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And Paul, you agreed upon this can be into 2 lots?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And this is what, septic and water there?
Um,
There's no sewers there
No, there's going to be sewer line brought up further and a well.
and a well.
Okay, the sewer stops over at State Farm. We'll bring it up.
All right, not water. So
Correct.
it'd be well and sewer.
Correct.
Okay.
The motion should be to approve this
Right.
subdivision of this parcel into 2 lots, that's it.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve application number 2024-6 of John Dodona for subdivision of the 13.9 acre parcel into 2 lots.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. E, right, application 2024-7 Newport Realty Group LLC for the construction of Turnberry Estates, a 34-unit active adult community on 24.6 parcel to be located off Pondview Drive. This is a motion to table.
I make a motion that we table application 2024-7 of Newport Realty LLC, construction of Turnberry Estates, 34-unit active adult community on 24.6 acre parcel.
Should we schedule a site walk?
We already went.
No,
Oh, sorry.
We already went there.
Sorry, yes, yes, yes.
motion made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. New application, A, application 2024-8 of Meadowcrest LLC for the construction of a single-family home on lot 46 Meadowcrest Lane, Watertown.
Good evening. My name is Pierre Moran. I'm the owner of the lot on Meadowcrest. This isn't, oh, there we go.
It's on, yeah.
Okay. I presented a plan. I don't know if everybody has a copy of the, I presented, okay, a plan for approval for this lot to be really just approved as a building lot. I don't have a house to be built there. I'm just trying to get the lot approved as a buildable lot. The subdivision was done by Robert Vale probably in 1953. It's been open land since then. I've used it as a garden. I'm familiar with the property because I lived there, right next door. And I want to sell it, but it's not an approved building lot. And that's my purpose of being here tonight. In the back of the property, there's an area that in the seasons of spring, runoff from snow melt and rains of spring, that has some water at that time. For the most part, the lot or that area is dry, I mean in the summer. There is a soil test that was done. They found that most of it is Paxton or types of soil that are not found in wetlands, but in that area, in the runoff area, they found some ridgeberry type soils that then would be considered wetland, and therefore that's why I'm here to get it approved.
Right. I don't know, Moose, is this a zoning question?
No,
Yes.
Mr. Moran, I think you are confused. It is already an existing building lot. It's an existing non-conforming building lot.
That's correct.
And on your application, you said that see plot plan. The plot plan shows the location of a house, a driveway, and everything.
That's right, but I mean,
Okay, you are
it's,
submitting an application for the construction of a house on this building, on this lot. This
Yeah.
commission is not approving or disapproving a building lot. That's the Planning and Zoning
Right.
Commission. But this is an existing non-conforming building lot.
that's right. But what I was told I had to do is to go before the wetlands in order to get it approved so that one can build a house there.
Yeah, this is the house that you are proposing. I mean, the commission will review the impact of this development on wetlands, and then they will decide on it. But this commission is not going to approve this parcel as a building lot, because this is already a building lot.
If you, excuse me, Dennis, if you pay taxes on it, it's gotta be a building lot.
It
You
is,
pay
I know,
taxes
and
on it?
I know
Do you
that,
have
but,
you pay tax every year
yeah,
on that lot?
yeah,
So
And you have a separate deed?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
it.
again, so it's a lot.
Well, so I was told I had to get a survey, I had to get a soil test, I had to do all of this in order to get a house approved for the lot.
Yes, and now you are
Yes,
here
how?
to get approval for this house.
Yeah, it would be this house in this lot, the way the application
On the
reads.
plan.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you
I mean-
stated previously you didn't have a
Fair
house
enough,
in mind.
excuse me,
Right.
I'm
I thought
confused,
most-
or in presenting to you, what I was told I had to do was
Right.
to outline something that would be put on that lot, that would be conforming to the lot, not only to a deed,
Right.
but then in accordance to what is here, this wetland area.
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was R20 zoning. This is 13,000 square feet. How's it a lot?
Doesn't matter. It is an
Okay.
existing non-conforming building lot. I
Okay.
think one of your potential buyers came to the office and we had a meeting with him. And the zoning enforcement officer, Mark Massoud, was also sitting at meeting. I was sitting. And we explained to them that as long as the house meets the zoning setbacks, and also you get a permit from the Wetland Commission for the construction, then we will issue a permit for you. The application that you submitted, you say that see attached plan. On the
Yeah.
plan, this is a plot plan. You are presenting a driveway, a house with all
Yeah,
the.
no, I see that, yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I presented it this
Are
way.
you
but-
building this house, or
No,
if not, then this is already a building lot.
okay. But I was told I had to go before the wetlands in order to get this here plan approved.
For construction,
That's correct.
Construction allowed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you want to plan, if you want a permit to construct this house, then that's what you're doing.
That's
You
correct.
should have a house.
and if you want to get a permit for this location, for this house, when you sell the lot, you can transfer the permit to that person, that they can build this house.
Okay, you know what, that's exactly what I want to do.
Okay then,
So
because
is
you
it-
confused
This-
us.
For this exact house, that's on the plot plan,
That's
Yeah.
right,
correct?
yes.
Do you want to go and see the site? I mean, we have two new applications tonight.
Right, it'll
Yeah.
take, we can do them both in one night. It'll take 5 minutes.
Yes.
The lot's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
13,000 square
It's a
feet.
small site, we can
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah,
a
we
sidewalk.
can
The
do
night of
it
the
before the
meeting.
meeting next month.
Pardon me?
The next meeting will be there,
Okay.
which is
May
May
9th.
May 9th?
May 9th, yes.
May 9th. May 9th at 5 o'clock.
Okay,
We're going to walk the lot,
all right.
okay?
All right, make a we need a motion for that?
Yes, dear.
All right, we'll make a motion that we schedule a site walk for May 9th at 5 o'clock on application
2024.
2024-8,
And
Second.
table.
and table it.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you.
See you on the
Yeah, the
8th.
ninth.
Good night.
8th, right?
At 5 o'clock.
9th?
9th.
9th, sorry, 9th.
I will send you an agenda,
You
don't
can
worry
go on your
about
own
it.
if you want.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
B, application 2024-9 of Todd Robbins for the construction of a single-family home and associated on-site septic and drainage system.
Engineer and land surveyor, representing applicant, Todd Robinson. Give you a chance to open up your little plans that you have there. What we're looking to do is to rebuild a new house on the property. It's on the northerly side of Bassett Road. And there's an existing house on there already. That's going to come down. We're going to build a newer house back, a 4-bedroom house, a little bit more to the north. We tested this property a couple years ago. Found one spot for a septic system. It's going to require about 3 feet of septic fill.
I think we're gonna do a site walk.
Probably more than likely, we want to do that.
Todd, any information, we had the last one about the city of Waterbury, no, I mean, you've been working up there, do they come see you or anything? Nobody ever,
They've come through and checked the boundaries every so often.
yeah, do they, yeah,
They repaint the boundaries every year.
yeah, but other than that,
You check the septic systems and all that? They still do that up in that area?
They have an inspector that does that.
right?
yes.
Yeah, so that's something that, I mean, nothing that, we'll be there on the night. Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Why the house has to be that far from the road? Can you bring it closer, or that, what is the reason?
Originally, I didn't think there would be as much traffic as there is. If you'd like to sit out there any given day, you can see how fast the cars go by there. I'd rather have it a little bit quieter. I didn't realize it's a cut through. Everybody from Litchfield, Morris, all that way, they must go down and get on Route 8 because it's nonstop traffic in the morning.
Because if you can stay outside of the regulated area, you don't need a wetland
I
permit.
pushed
That
it
is my
back a
point,
little- I
yes.
pushed it back a little farther because we're having a walkout basement.
Okay.
Put it where the house is now, we'd have to do a lot more blasting and excavation to get that. That's
Okay.
why I kind of pushed it back.
Okay,
And Musa, this was submitted before the 150,
yes.
right?
It is 100-foot setback.
Yes.
For this application, yes.
We'll be there on the 9th, right?
9th does.
May,
5:30?
5:30 about? And this, Gary
I
knows
guess
that,
one of my questions is, when can I blast?
not yet. No,
You gotta wait a
If
while.
you're-
we gotta wait a while.
I don't know.
9th of
If
May.
he's outside the review.
If you're outside the review area.
You can do whatever you
that's up to
want.
Musa, but if you're in the review area, no.
Where do you want to blast? Right where the house is?
It's gonna require
A
blasting.
lot of legend. It's all legend.
Yeah, that's right within the review
Review
area.
area.
Real estate agent would call it a high rocky overlook. If you're in a swamp, wetlands, you call it a low fertile valley, so, you know.
High Rocky overlay, I like that.
We'll be there May 9th,
Is what it is.
What time is that?
5:30, correct?
5:30.
Musa?
Mr. Chairman, do you want to go to this first and then come to the other one second?
Yes.
And then we are close to them,
closer.
to
Right,
here?
yeah.
May
Okay.
9th, what time?
So it'll be 5
5:30?
o'clock, sorry. Todd.
5 o'clock?
Yes.
It's a Saturday.
And
I
the
know,
other one
Paul,
will be
I've got to sit
5:30.
down with you, Paul. I can't get an infiltrator system for the roof leaders. And you'll notice I've got a little level spreader there.
Tonight.
So you're gonna have to make a call on that and whether you're gonna let me get by with that. I have a 100-foot level spreader for the roof leaders and footing drains.
Right?
And, yeah, you'll see it's over there. It's in a regulated area, so,
Gary, you'll have it marked
yeah.
out the house and the
I'll mark it out.
wetlands and,
There's a bunch of jogs in the house. I'm just gonna mark out a general area for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the wetlands are flagged?
They were flagged a while ago. Cynthia did that report back in, what, early 2000? Something like that. It was quite a while ago Cynthia did the report. I don't know if Cynthia's coming out or not anymore.
No, it wasn't. It was done after that.
Was it done after that?
but are the flags there?
18 or
You think?
19. Yeah, there's still some flags.
Some are still there.
2000.
I could put them back by survey if
Right,
you want.
that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else.
Bassett Road, next Linfield Road.
I could probably stake out the rain gutter, or the level spreader too. Like I say, it's a bunch of rock in there, so any infiltrator for the roof leaders is not gonna work.
We're good.
So
Okay.
you said early 2000s? No, it was after that. I have the paperwork at home. I want to say it was 2017.
I'm trying to think the first time I located the wetlands flaggings out there. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was, because I bought it in, I've had it 9 years. And it was right when I bought it. It was flagged.
Okay. Time nowadays flies by.
Paul, you have any questions for him? No.
Yeah, I just wondered, does the applicant has to run this by the Bureau, the Water Department and
Yeah, he's
Waterbury?
gonna,
I can make contact with them.
Yeah, okay.
Basically, what they'll usually say is, as long as you have current area health approval, you're in good shape, so.
I know, they probably worried about buried oil tanks or, you know, who knows.
No problem.
thank you.
Okay.
Make a motion.
We make a motion to schedule a site walk on May 9th, 5 o'clock for the application of 2024-9 Todd Robinson, and
Second.
table until then.
Motion made and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night, folks. See ya. 9, old business, none. 10, old business, none. 11, communications and bill. A reappointment letter for Mr. Mike Jett as a regular member.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Assuming he'll accept the nomination.
Yes. I already got swore at. I'm good.
Sworn at or sworn in?
They swore at me, we're all set.
Make a motion to accept and file that.
I'll make a motion to accept and file Mr. Mike Jedd's
Second.
reappointment letter.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, any abstention, motion carries. 12, reports from officers and committees, chairman's report. Paul, there was tonight when Musa asked, whatever it is, their Newbury Court about the retention ponds, is there, I heard at the Public Works Subcommittee, there's talk about charging a fee or doing something to maintain these ponds? That was Monday night, I think.
Yeah. I don't recall that about
Okay.
the fee, but I know we're trying to crack down on people, especially these private, which this will be,
Yeah.
an association about the maintenance, and I know we talked about, having a schedule, it's got to be whatever report, whether it's annual, biannual, or whenever it needs cleaning, should have a PE, sign off that it's done correctly and
Right, but
it's up to stuff that.
the problem in this town, we have very little enforcement, so I don't know how we'd ever enforce it.
We shouldn't discuss a specific application, but as
No,
a
it's just a
general, as a general,
Yes, right.
Yes.
I know it was mentioned, I didn't go to Public Works Subcommittee, but it was mentioned. So I don't know if you knew what was brought up or not, that's all.
No, it's just, especially the private, outside the town, maintain ones or lack of
Right.
maintain ones, we really need to try to tighten up the private or commercial.
Right.
Or these association, whatever, non-town.
Not non-town, no.
Ponds, that they need to be maintained and there has to be a schedule and there should be reports.
Right.
At least annually, in my opinion.
Right.
Well, I think this one is very important, the one we talked about tonight. That has to be cleaned, actually, almost every year. If that thing ever plugs up, we'll have a problem. Who will be policing anything? Moose?
On a general basis, that would fall under under you, under wetlands?
The detention pond?
Yes.
No.
Public work.
Paul?
But if they're private.
If it's private, yeah.
So if they're private, who gets the report?
I thought it was wetlands, through
Should
wetlands office.
both, I think, wetlands and
Once they
public
built
works
it,
should get it.
that is why I asked tonight on one of the applications
Yeah.
that you should submit a maintenance plan.
Right.
And it will be the responsibility of that association to enforce it. Yes.
Right, but who would make sure the
Yeah.
association does what they're supposed to be doing? Do they want to cut the budget and the maintenance guy for the pond doesn't do it? Who cares?
Yeah, but I think that if you have it in your approval or something, they have to do it and then give them a bill, let them know that it was done. It's part of we should make it part of the approval.
We shouldn't discuss
No,
specifics,
no.
but.
No, we're
yeah,
not talking about
yeah.
that, we're
No.
talking about.
In general, yeah.
No, but so that should be added to any application that has a
Right.
pond, correct?
Yep.
So you're gonna add that to,
I'm not reading another.
I'm not reading, no, that was Musa did that to you, as I asked him. Or you're gonna add that to the other subdivision you're gonna write up for next month?
Yes.
Okay. Reports from staff?
Mr. Chairman, I
sorry.
think I got a point of order here. Did we totally miss application or something on agenda 7D for Thomason Road?
No, that was-
we approved it.
That was John Dodona.
He's listed here as, 7D. I'm sorry, I was looking at number 6. My mistake. I apologize.
You didn't plant corn today, did you?
No.
Oh, good,
That's
thank
done.
God. Reports from staff?
Paul, can you please explain the situation on Northfield Road, the culvert?
Yes, Moose, Mr. Chairman. There's a failing asphalt-coated corrugated pipe on Northfield Road, just between L&K and Hopkins Road, that has kind of eroded part of the road. There's kind of just down the 1.5 lanes. And the Public Works is going to do an emergency replacement of this pipe. There is, I think it's a 52 by 40 inch arched corrugated metal pipe now. We've ordered a 48-inch high-density polyethylene pipe. It's going to take a week or two to come in, but it will be replaced in kind, no disturbance to the water course on either side of it, but it's something that needs to be done, otherwise the road's going to, it's going to collapse. So this is one of these aging, just like down on Falls Avenue, we still have to do, which we approved 3 years ago. I just realized. That's, a lot of these are.
You never did that either.
No, not yet. It's holding up so far, but we do have 5 years to start that, correct? Melissa?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I received an email from the Department of Public Works. I want Mr. Secretary to read that into the record.
So, before I read this, you're going from a 52 by 40 to a 48.
It's the equivalent diameter of the arch pipe, yes.
Interesting. All right, so we have two Musarafi from Paul Benovich, April 9th, 2024, Northfield Road, culvert replacement, Watertown. The town of Watertown is requesting permission to replace an existing 52-inch by 40-inch arch corrugated metal pipe culvert in the above roadway, which has failed due to extreme age and corrosion. The town highway department will replace the pipe with a 48-inch diameter HDPE pipe, which has the equivalent flow capacity, as the existing culvert. The road will be closed temporarily for a day or two once the pipe is delivered, which could take a few weeks. A pump will be required to transfer the stream flow across the road to the west side during installation. No disturbance in the stream bed is anticipated outside of the pipe replacement. If you have any questions, please contact me.
Mr. Chairman, just due to the emergency situation, I told them to go ahead and do this. I didn't ask for an application because it takes months to approve. And it's an emergency situation. They have to fix it anyway, just for your information.
We hope to have this done before the next meeting, so it's kind of it is emergency, so we don't want to lose the road.
Public participation, adjournment.
So moved.
18, what is it, 48?
8:48.
8:48.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Recording stopped.